We would like to thank the candidates for Rhode Island's Senate District 36 for supporting North Kingstown High School's Candidates Day. Following a predetermined speaking order, each candidate will be introduced briefly by a sponsoring student, after which the candidate will have up to 1 minute to offer introductory remarks to the audience. After each candidate has offered opening remarks, students may approach the microphone in front of the stage and ask questions. Our first candidate sponsoring student will now offer a brief introduction.
Who is running for state senate. She has been working in mental health for many years and became motivated by the stories she has heard to positively impact the state. She has already made strides in helping people have easier access to their basic needs, affordable health care, equality, child welfare, education, a cleaner environment, and more. She hopes to continue expanding on these if re-elected. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce our senator, Ms. Amara DeMario.
Thank you so much, Grace, for that excellent introduction. It was my pleasure to get to know you the other day when we were able to speak a little bit about my work. So my name is Alana DeMario. In 2020, I ran for the open state Senate seat that covered the district in North Kingstown and also half of Narragansett, which is where I live. And I was motivated to do this because of my history working in the mental health care field and learning the stories of so many different Rhode Islanders, from children all the way up through adulthood, who would interact with different systems in our community that just weren't working well for them. And so when I ran, I was taking their stories with them to the State House to be able to make changes at that level so that they could live their best possible lives, so that they could start businesses more easily, so that their educational systems would work a little bit better for them, so their basic needs would be able to be met. And so for the last 2 years, I have worked really hard to be able to open doors and create new pathways for people to be able to succeed in our community. I really look forward to our conversation today. Thank you.
I'm Maddie Pressman, and it is my honor to introduce Mr. Murray, who's running for State Senate, District 36. He was a candidate for Narragansett Town Council who wanted to make changes to the Narragansett Public Library. He's now running for State Senate and is hoping to hear his new plan for this new position. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce our next Senate, Mr. Murray.
Okay, I'd like to thank Madison and all the administrators, Mr. Vieira, for having me here today, certainly all the students. My campaign manager here, Mr. Avadesian, oh, he's right there. Okay, there he is. He's my North Kingston friend. You want the blood later on. So anyway, I've been on the town council the last 8 years. Grew up in Narragansett, fourth generational resident. Graduated in Chicago in 19, let me get to that. I have a twin brother. Graduated the year, same year as the high school, Narragansett High School. The administrators back then decided to break us up, for whatever reason. But looking forward, campaign, I've been on the campaign, banging on a lot of doors, talking to a lot of people, and I have some concerns, and I hope you can support my campaign for District 36 Senate. Thank you.
Thank you for your remarks. At this time, the microphone in front of the stage is available to anyone who wishes to ask questions about the candidate. Excuse me. At this time, the microphone in front of the stage is available to anyone who wishes to ask questions about the candidates' views on pertinent issues. While all students are encouraged to participate, the participation is based on a first-come, first-served basis. Candidates will have up to 1 minute to respond to questions in accordance with a predetermined order.
Good morning. My question is, how can we deal with the rising housing costs in both Narragansett and North Kingstown?
Yeah. Thank you. I think Gavin Deacon needs to go to the principal's office after that little introduction there. Okay, affordable housing, difficult issue. Narragansett, we're a tourist town, and a college town. So the average family has kind of been pushed out of the market. The average housing is like, what is it? Well over $700,000 for a house. We just don't have the demographics of local families can afford that. So how can we offset that? There's one town out west. What they do is they take revenue from vacation rentals, from Airbnb, and they approach Airbnb homeowners, rental owners, and they give them above market rents so families can have a more inventory so families can rent here. So that's one solution. Got a yellow card. I think they got 15 people. That's it. We're done. Thank you.
So building on what Mr. Murray said, absolutely attacking the issue of short-term rentals is one way to try to address this problem. One of the interesting things about solving the housing issue is that it takes a lot of cooperation between the state level government and also the city and town level government. So, for example, in Narragansett, they are investing in doing a short-term rental ordinance that would maybe incentivize a fewer of those so that there's more opportunity for families to be able to live year-round in Narragansett. Again, that is something that we can support at the state level with some policies, but it relies a lot on decisions that are made at the local level, zoning and things like that. The other thing that I also want to mention is that there's the opportunity for housing by buying a home, but there's also the opportunity to be able to attain housing by being able to do a year-round rental. And so another thing that we can do is really look to maximize and increase the incentives that we're able to offer as a state for landlords to be able to offer year-round rentals versus short-term ones to be able to create some more opportunities there. Thank you.
I've noticed there has been a trend in Providence where places have gotten a lot more walkable and bikeable in exchange for cutting back on car use and infrastructure. Will you be planning on expanding on that trend as climate change is becoming a bigger and bigger issue?
Thank you for that question. That's a great one. So one of the kind of national initiatives that touches on is the idea of what they call complete streets. And this is looking at, as we improve our infrastructure, as we're looking to make improvements to our roads and kind of our major ways of traveling in our communities, that we do so with three things in mind. You mentioned being able to be walkable and bikeable, so safe for those two. But the other thing that Complete Streets also incorporates is also something that supports a good, healthy environment, which is things like stormwater management. So if any of you guys ever travel down to like Wakefield, Tower Hill Road there, where they have the Shaws and things like that, they've actually just implemented a Complete Streets program there. So you may have noticed over the past couple of years, there's now a biking lane, there are sidewalks, and there are also these islands in the middle and to the sides that help with effective stormwater management. And so as we're investing these federal infrastructure dollars into our communities, we really need to be doing so with an eye to make sure that we're building those types of complete streets to help people navigate safely in our communities and also support addressing climate change as well. Thank you. Amanda.
Okay, I think the state of Rhode Island is pretty much underway with this issue. I mean, you drive up to Providence, you got green bus areas, and you got white lanes. I mean, I have a hard time figuring out where I drive my car. I mean, and then congested issue. You got to watch how you turn. The bus is going to be right there. So it's getting underway, and there's a lot of abandoned railroad tracks that have been turned into bike paths already. So, I mean, I think it's underway. I don't see how much can expand on it except to expand public busing.
Rhode
Rhode Island has some of the worst roads in the country. What is your stance on the truck tolls, and how would you propose on paying for the damaged roads?
Well, yeah, that's one thing we're famous. I think we're number one in Baton Rouge. I'm not sure if that's very good. Yeah, the whole truck toll fiasco is, I don't know, built 5 years ago based on it's legal. Now it's not legal, it's in court. God knows when that's going to be settled. How do we pay for the roads? Well, I will not, in the event of the state senate, I will not support charging vehicles through those gantries. Okay? When they built them, that's what they said. So, we had that gasoline tax. I think we get a lot of electric cars rolling out. You know, maybe it should show up on the electric bill. Because if you're juicing up the cars, it'd be just like an electric charge, similar to the gas tax.
So, as Mr. Murray noted, the current truck tolling system is currently under review with the courts, and so that's probably not something that the General Assembly would be weighing in on this session. The decision to implement those happened before I was elected. Similar to Mr. Murray, I don't support implementing passenger vehicle tolls at this time. So that's something that we need to look at. But the issue that you bring up is one that really touches a lot of different things that we need to make happen here in Rhode Island, which is the idea of what is the sustainable revenue stream to be able to support something. So what is that consistent source of money? And then how do we make sure that that's something that is fair? So one of the ideas that's been floated, kind of different states around the country, because a lot of people are dealing with this, is the idea of having some sort of vehicle miles traveled tax. So therefore people would kind of pay proportional to their use of the roads. So that's one thing to look at. But really what we want to do is make sure that it doesn't disproportionately punish people who are lower income, and also that people who are using the roads more are paying more. So especially those people who are kind of traveling through like the truckers and things like that. So it has to be an issue of fairness. Thank you.
Good morning. What are your thoughts on the overturning of Roe v. Wade?
It's bad. So in 2019, here in Rhode Island, we codified the protections of Roe versus Wade into state law. So we did that in 2019. However, our state laws do not protect us if there is a federal law that would be put in place to supersede that. If there was a federal abortion ban, then the Reproductive Privacy Act would no longer be effective here in Rhode Island. And so there are certain things that we can do here at a state level to protect people's ability to choose how to handle their reproductive health. And I'm using that term because I'm not only speaking here about abortion care, I'm also speaking about having access to a full range of contraceptive choices, because that is also something that is potentially at risk at the federal level. And so it is absolutely essential that both we here at the state and then everything that we do to support our federal leaders that we're sending to Washington, we do so with that idea in mind, that these protections are absolutely at risk here in Rhode Island, and we have to do everything that we can to continue to make sure that people can determine their own futures. Thank you.
Okay, well, this is certainly a hot button issue. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, of course, she's a progressive Chief Justice. She felt that Roe versus Wade couldn't stand legally. That's what she felt was in a breach. How I personally feel about it, it's turned into a states' rights issue, and it is codified in Rhode Island, 2019. And I don't think a national abortion ban is on the horizon. I really don't. I think many people feel like you, 80% of the country believe up to the second term, life of the mother. And anyway, this is a very contentious issue. And I don't think that as a state senator in District 36, if I was opposed, I couldn't do anything about it.
So, we've seen in many parts of the country that trans youth are attacked, and I'm just wondering what your plans are for protecting trans rights and improving access to gender-affirming healthcare for trans youth in Rhode Island.
The LGBTQ plus community, they're out there. They're residents, their family, their friends. They should have the same rights as anybody else. We are all humans, no matter what race, color, creed, religion. The first thing to do when you meet somebody, just show respect. That's simple.
So there are a lot of different areas of that question that I think I could focus on, but one of the things that I want to talk about is just the idea of reviewing our current systems, including our current laws and the current language in our laws, to make sure that at the very level of creating the rules that we all live by, that we are using language that is inclusive, language that absolutely affirms trans rights and their inclusion in different systems, in different types of access to healthcare. Just this past term, just to give you an example, we actually passed a bill where we went through a lot of our language through the Department of Health, and we removed the term mental retardation. And so I think many of you have probably grown up at a time where we know that that is an outdated term and that is not something that we use, but that is something that still existed in our laws. And so we need to be looking very carefully at making sure that at that moment of creating any type of laws that have to do with access to healthcare, that have to do with access to education, that have to do with community inclusion, that we are positively affirming inclusion of every single group, including trans people. Thank you.
So this question is in regards to renewable energy for the state of Rhode Island and this area. Over recent years, we've seen the construction of the solar farm by Dry Bridge, and I was wondering how your efforts will continue to support those types of projects that feel that impact directly.
I am pumped about this question because for the last couple of months I have spent so many hours and days of my life trying to, one, learn about and understand how our energy grid works, two, figure out why it is that costs are rising so much, and three, try to figure out how to address that in a way that meets both our environmental mandate to create more sustainable sources of energy and reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, and also bring costs down for all of us. So, in the probably 30 seconds that I have left, what I want to say is that again, things like the development of solar farms, offshore wind energy, it is a cooperation sometimes between federal government, state government, and municipal government in terms of siting, but also that as we bring more resources, renewable resources online like solar power and offshore wind, and we reduce our reliance for our energy grid on natural gas, which is the thing that is causing the spikes, our costs will all go down. It does need to be a balance, especially when we're talking about solar power, to make sure that we're not sacrificing forests and green space to build solar farms. I think we could do a lot more. I know that the card is red, but I really just want to finish my thought, if that's okay. We can do a lot more to be able to site those things more responsibly, use brownfields, previously disturbed sites, rooftops, things like that, to be able to increase the share of our grid that's powered by renewable energy, decrease the share that is powered by natural gas, bring our costs down, and also reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. So that is
the Okay, solar. In Rhode Island, today, we've cut down 1,000 acres a forest to make room for solar farms. To me, that's an environmental conflict. Okay? Why don't we take the flat roof of this building and start putting solar farms on this building first, and every other thing. And that will bring down the municipal cost for school. Thank you.
I just want to let you guys know that this is going to be our last question, unfortunately.
My question is in regards to mental health. What will you do to reduce the rate of suicide in teenagers?
Well, I have a 16-year-old son who's in there again. That's a good question. You know, with everything that's going on with COVID, and then now inflation, your parents are stressed out because of the high energy costs of food. That stress causes kids and the family doing it. They feel the stress. And, you know, at this age, 16, 17, 18, 14, I remember it was a long time ago. Who wasn't stressed out? Who wasn't confused? Who wasn't trying to figure out what the hell they're going to do? Each of you have friends. Reach out to them. Okay? We have a conference. Reach out to them. Because you have your whole life ahead of you. Don't let a couple of months of depression or a bad situation. The tide will turn.
Thank you so much for this important question. As I mentioned at the beginning, I am a mental health counselor. Working with children, adolescents, adults is what I do in my day job when I'm not in the state senate. And one of the things that I've tried to focus on as a state senator for the past 2 years is trying to, one, increase access in our communities by figuring out different points where, especially since you asked about teenagers, where teenagers might be able to access mental health care services that aren't always the traditional way. So making sure that we can work to have increased access in schools where kids are. We can have different types of community supports that maybe might not look like traditional counseling, but will also be something that would attack some of those factors. But the other thing that we are really facing here in Rhode Island is a shortage of mental health counselors. And so the other thing that I have worked to do is to be able to open up the pipeline for more people to be able to go into this field, stay in this field, work here in Rhode Island in this field, so that that access can be achieved and people can get the help and support that they need. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for allowing me to ask one more question. As a student in a public school, I find it disturbing that some people have to go into school afraid that that might be the last day of their life. And I wonder, as the amount of mass shootings, especially in school, that number goes up, how do you plan on addressing gun control and shooting?
There are certain laws that we can put in place that will reduce the incidence of gun violence in our communities and in our schools. And in Rhode Island, we have been slowly making progress on being able to pass some of those laws to be able to reduce the chances that that will happen. We know that, again, if we have, I think that the next kind of frontier with that is looking at safe storage laws, because when we reduce access to deadly weapons, we know that fewer people die from gun violence. And so I think that is one thing that we can do next at the state level. But again, this is another thing. You know, we don't have border checks here in Rhode Island. This is a cooperative effort among different states and then also across the country and potentially at the federal level to look at what we need to do to be able to reduce access to these deadly weapons and make sure that in that moment of impulsivity or in that moment of bad decision making or ill intent that somebody is not able to put their hands on something that is going to devastate a community. Thank you.
Okay, I wrote one of the questions. Each school is uniquely different. Okay? You need secure professionals. To look at each school and secure it properly. And the outer perimeter. It needs to be, I'm not a security professional, but that's where it needs to go. And again, you all know each other. You all stop issues like this by paying attention and looking out for each other. We hear them. But each school needs to be secured in the proper way.
Unfortunately, our scheduled time will close shortly. Keeping with our speaking order, candidates will be allowed up to 1 minute for closing remarks.
Okay, I want to thank you for having me today. Make sure you see Avedija. Make sure you harass us. I feel today's General Assembly, Rhode Island General Assembly, is more concerned about UN issues and kitchen table issues that we are addressed, that need to be addressed in District 36, such as energy, school safety, the COVID craziness that seems to be among us that we're still trying to get over. We've got a one-two punch here. Now it's inflation. Wait for this. The tide will turn. We need to hang together. Good luck to the Skippers on Friday. That's competing against the Central High Knights. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to start by saying again, thank you to all of you for your time and attention this morning. Thank you to Mr. Veria for coordinating this wonderful event. We didn't get to do it in 2020 when I first ran. We did it virtually, and I really appreciate this opportunity. I just want to take the remaining part of my minute here just to talk about the idea that public service is a really essential thing for everybody to be able to see themselves as having a part in. I am not from a background that would necessarily have led me to the path of going into politics, to going into public service. It has turned out to be what, kind of the privilege of my lifetime, to be able to be in this role and to be able to serve my community in a new way, in a different way. And I just really want to encourage everybody, I'm going to use a quote here, to really think about the ways that you can participate, both at the local, the state, or even at the national level, in being able to improve your community. So I'm going to use a quote here from, I don't know if anybody is familiar with Elise Myers, but what I want to say is, I'm telling you right now, the traits that make you feel like an outsider are the same traits that will include others at the table the moment you allow yourself to get comfortable existing alongside them. Show up with your best self, serve your community.